Hey everyone, it's TK Friday, and today it's a pastoral scene. I'm calling this one Grazing in the Green. You can download the image and the PDF notes and follow along with me. This will be a full edit coming up. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Yes, it is TK Friday again. Are you ready for a full edit? Are you ready for a pastoral scene today? Don't forget to download the image and PDF notes. I'll have links in the description below. There'll be Dropbox links, so open up that description, click more or show more so you can actually see that. And by the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, you can save 15% off the TK9 plugin for Photoshop along with training videos. Use my promo code DK15. That gets you 15% off of everything. Not only are you saving money, but you're supporting the joy of editing with Dave Kelly when you use that promo code DK15. So thank you all for using my promo code. I really appreciate it. Today's image is by Keith Simpson. Thank you, Keith, for allowing us to use your beautiful image today. I really love this pastoral scene. It's really pretty. In the PDF notes, you'll find step-by-step editing instructions. These are mine. You don't have to follow them to the letter. You do what you want, but these are good guidelines for you. So give this edit a try. It's a good way of getting your feet wet with the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. As always, I start out in Lightroom, and I used a linear profile for Keith's camera, a Canon 5D Mark IV. Basically click auto, and I had to readjust the white and black point so I don't get any clipping in whites and blacks. Lens corrections, I always check on remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. And then in detail, I just use some basic sharpening, and that is really it. And then I just right click the image and go to edit in and edit in Photoshop. 2024 just came out with generative fill, so I'm really excited about that. If you don't know about this yet, hop on over to Tony Kuiper's web store, click on my affiliate link in the description below, and you can get the TK Gen Fill panel for free. Tony has developed this to work with Gen Fill in beta, and now we have Gen Fill in Photoshop 2024. I'll be making a bunch of videos on this panel. I'll show you great ways of filling in your images, adding some elements to your images to make them more interesting, and this panel will make that job far superior than the results you'll get just using generative fill. It's really cool, so you want to check out those videos. They'll be upcoming. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and that way you'll be notified every time I bring out a new video. And also, please leave comments and questions. I really love hearing from you, and like, share, and subscribe. This helps to support the joy of editing with Dave Kelly, and when you do that, I thank you. Exciting times in the world of Photoshop. Well, let's get started. The first thing I want to do is set myself up for success, and what I mean by that is I will come up to the Luminosity Mask button, click on that, click on Midtones 3. I need this mask to protect highlights and shadows from clipping. And you'll see me using this with a color grading tool in a moment here. But first, I want to save this as a channel, so click this button right here. We're just going to call this Mids 3, and we'll click OK. And when we do, you'll notice we saved that out as a channel right down here. Now, we don't need this anymore, so we can click the X. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to save out a sky and a foreground channel. So if you hold your Command or Control key down and click on the sky button, you'll save the sky out as a channel, and it's already named for you, and that's really cool. And then hold your Command or Control key down again and double click on the sky, and now you're going to save out a foreground channel. So that's pretty cool. Now you'll notice I already have a selection here. We can utilize that. The first thing I want to do is do a balance and contrast adjustment on the foreground. So what we can do is click on the color grading tool button, and when we do, we apply the foreground mask to that. So we're only affecting the foreground. Now, I want to protect shadows and highlights from clipping. So what we'll do is Command or Control click on either the CX panel mask calculator or the combo panel mask calculator button. When you hold your Command or Control key down and click, you'll keep that open because we want to keep that open just for a little bit. When you need to close it, you just click this X here. But what we're going to do first is we want to get a mids 3, and I want to intersect that. In other words, put that midtones 3 inside of that white area right there, the selected area. So click this X button. That just means intersection. And that's it. It does it right there. Now, if I click this button here, if you ever want to see what a mask looks like on a layer, click this double arrow button, and there you can see there's my midtones 3. Pretty cool, isn't that? Right on the foreground. Click this button again, we go back to the image, and now we can adjust shadows, midtones, and highlights by clicking on any of these 3 different buttons. And I'll start out with shadows. And what I want to do is darken up those shadows to add some contrast. So I'm going to pull this back to like -19. Takes a little bit of experimentation, but once you get a level that you like, you just stop there. Now we'll go to midtones, and I do want to open up the midtones. Now when you drag the slider, you don't see anything happening to you. Release your left click of your mouse, and I took mine up to right here, +48. And then I did a little bit of color grading, and I just added a little bit of warmth to the scene, just like that. Really looks nice on that foreground. And then I went to highlights, and I opened up my highlights to right about here, 36. So if we click this eye right here, we can see the before or after. Now you can also click this button right here to shut a layer on or off. And I believe when you use this one, it doesn't use a history state. So it saves a little bit of history for you. Now that the foreground is done, we don't want to leave that sky left out. So let's work on that next. Now we need another color grading tool. So if we click this plus on the color grading tool, we add a color grading tool. Now we can come back to the mask calculator, and this time we're going to click on sky. And if you click this button right here, you'll apply that sky mask right to that layer. So click this button, and there you see it. And now we want to protect shadows and highlights from clipping. So let's click on our trusty midtones 3 mask and click the X for intersect. It's very simple, and if we click the double arrow button, we can see there it is. Click it again, we have the image back, and now let's make some adjustments. But first, I don't need the calculator right now, so I'm just going to click this X to close it, and now I have my buttons back. All right, let's start out with midtones. So we'll click on the midtone button, and what I want to do is pull the midtones back, and I think I'm going to go to here, -21. I'm not going to do any color grading. I'm going to go to the highlights. So click the highlight button, and I'm just going to open up the highlights just a little wee bit, not much right there. But let's check it out. Here is the before and now the after, but you see how it's nicely balanced out now? My editing philosophy is kind of look for problems and fix them. And after you fix all the problems, generally you have a pretty nice edit when you're done, and then you can do some little things that you want to add to spruce up the image. But let's go ahead, and this color grading tool is in our way, so we'll click the X. Nothing will change here. And what I want to do is lighten up the midtones, and a real easy way to do that is to come up and click on the luminosity mask button, click on midtones 1 for a very subtle lifting up of the midtones. I'll put that to any one of these adjustment layers. I usually use curves. It doesn't really matter. I'm just using it for a blend mode. And we're going to change that blend mode to screen, and you see how the midtones are lightened. But that's way too light. And usually what I like to do is take the opacity off and then just build it up slowly and stop where I think it looks good. And in this case, I think I stopped right here. Actually, no, I stopped right here, man. Let's see, 45%. So here is the before and here's the after, but you see how it just lifts up the midtones. Next, what I like to do is lighten up some of the light areas in the foreground to bring some life to this beautiful pastoral scene. So to do that, I'm going to click on the luminosity mask button, and I want to use like a lights. This is lights 1, this is lights 2, and just see it's just all the lighter areas in here will get lightened. Now, don't forget about these buttons up here. These are your different color channels. Right now we're in RGB, so I like to try these. Here's what red looks like. I'm just trying to get more separation in the light areas. Here's green, here's blue. That's not good. Here's cyan. That's not good. Here's magenta. Not good, but here's yellow. But see how these lighter areas get a little bit lighter. So I'm getting a little better separation here. So I'm going to use that one. And now I need to output this to a color grading tool. Now, right now, the entire image will get affected here, but don't worry about that. I have that covered coming up. But what I want to do here is simply to click on the midtone button and then move the brightness slider to the right, which will lighten up the areas that are targeted with the mask. And right here at 33, see how they all just lighten up? And then I'm going to do a slight color grade. Now, if you look at the tip of my cursor, wherever I left click, I will add that color grade simply by giving it a left click. It's really easy to do. I'm not going to go off my number on my notes, but I'm just going to click like right here. And it just adds a little bit of yellowish green to those areas. But now, you'll notice if I shut this layer off, it's over the entire image, and I don't want that. I just want it in the foreground. So what we'll do is get a mask calculator. So we'll click on a mask calculator. It can be on the CX or the combo panel. We'll click on sky, and now I don't want the sky. So what do you think I would use here? I don't want to add the sky. I want to subtract it. So we'll click the minus button. And just like that, if we click the double arrow, we can see we subtracted the sky. Click the double arrow again, and we're back to the image. So that's cool. Let me shut this off, and now you see it's only on the foreground. I don't like what's happening to the cow, so I'm grabbing an object selection tool. You'll find it in your tool well. I have mine set up for rectangle, and this is easy. You can just draw a loose selection around here, and Photoshop will find that cow. And now we can come back to the mask calculator and click on the active selection. You see that? That's the active selection. And now I want to subtract the cow from that foreground. So click the minus, but let me shut off my marching ants. You can see the selection there. If you click this button here, you'll shut that off. And now let's see, here's the before and here's the after. Now it's not affecting the cow. Then if we look at the mask, you can see the cow has been masked out. That's pretty neat, wouldn't you say? I love that. Now click this double arrow again, and we're back to the image, and now we're on to the next phase. Now I'd like to pull down some of the shadows in the clouds, not too much, but just to add a little bit more drama into those clouds. So to do that, what we're going to do is, right now the mask calculator is in my way of my multi-mask panel, so I'll click the X. And we're going to go to the luminosity mask button again, so we're going to click it, and we need to target the darker areas here. Let's try a darks 1. That's not bad. The lighter areas are the darker areas. Here's a darks 2. That is getting them better. You know, I don't want to go too overboard here. I just really want to isolate the darker clouds, and then we can try the different channels here, like red, green. I'm just looking for more separation. Blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow. But yellow really makes those a little bit lighter, a little bit stronger, so that is good. This time I'm going to use a brightness contrast adjustment. You know, I could use another color grading tool. There's all kind of ways we can do things, but let's mix it up a little bit. How about that? Let's have some fun. So let's brightness contrast, but I only want to affect the sky. So let's go back to the trusty mask calculator. So click on the mask calculator, and then we want to click on foreground. And you may say, why are you clicking on foreground, Dave? You want sky? Well, I'm going to subtract it. So click the minus button, and now the foreground is subtracted. So let's click the double arrow, and you can see I only got the clouds. And that's what I mean by setting yourself up for success. We made those masks early, and so that really makes our workflow go a lot smoother and quicker. So that's why I do that. Click the double arrow again, and now we're back, and now we can make the adjustment. I'll start with pulling the brightness back, and I think I'm going to go like right here, minus 36. And now let's give it a little bit of contrast, see if that helps. So let me pull this to the right. See that contrast builds up a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy, but like a plus 39, I believe it is. So check it out. Here is the before, and here's the after. A little bit extra drama there. Isn't that cool? Looking good. Now, if we click this before-after button, we can see where we started from and how we're advancing. And I like to do this from time to time. Kind of gives me a confidence boost. Like, Dave, you're doing a good job here, man. So check it out. Here's the before. So we came from here, and now we're here. Looking good. And now I want to give some of the lighter areas in the clouds some love. I want to lighten those guys up a little bit to play off of the contrast, the darkening that I added to the shadows. I'm going to grab a dodge tool. So right here in the combo panel, or you'll find it over here in the CX panel, the dodge tool has two sides. The right side is a transparent pixel layer. The left side is a 50% gray layer. You can use either one. There's reasons why you would want to use one over the other. I'm not going to take the time now to go into that, but today you could use either side. It would work fine. I'm going to use the left side for a 50% gray layer. We'll get the same results with either side. But there you can see there's my 50% gray layer in the overlay blend mode. Now I'll use something new to the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, and that is this button right here. So we're going to click it. This is for editing blend diff. This is really cool. I'll click this button right here, and you can see my entire image went pink. Why did that happen? That's just telling me the entire image is selected, but I'm looking for light tones, remember? So check this out. When I click on one, you can see these are all the tones that will be affected here. And that's really too broad. So let's try 2, and you can see the areas in magenta are going to get the adjustment. It's still too broad. I'm going to go to 3. This is lights 3. So that is more like it. So that's cool. Now we'll click this button again and we can shut that magenta overlay off. But now I'm going to the trusty mask calculator again. So not the trash can, Dave, the mask calculator right here. So let's click this button. And now what I want to do is get the sky, because remember, I just want to work in the sky, but there's a really cool thing we can do here. See this right here? The circle with the dashed lines, that's to load this up as a selection, the sky. So click this button, and now you can see the selection indicators here and on my CX panel, the colored line around here. That means I have a selection, but we don't see the selection because Tony hid that selection for us. Thank you, Tony. The dodge tool, when I clicked on the dodge tool, set us up with a white brush for dodging. Makes sense, right? White, light, dodge. Okay, so now what we want to do is my opacity right now is at 50%. I'm going to type my 1 key to bring that down to 10%. And what I want to do now is I can just paint over areas. Now, every time I lift my brush and paint again, which I'm doing here, every time you see me stroke, I've lifted my brush, and I'm just going over light areas, okay? And the blend diff is targeting those light areas. And I can even make my brush larger if I want to here and just stroke over these areas like so. Again, lift your brush, paint over them several times. You know, it's really up to you. You know, what I'm doing for my vision may be totally different. You may not even want to dodge these clouds. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. Now, if I went too strong, like in an area here, I can click on my gray brush and, you know, hit that once or twice and tone that down and blend it. So that's really cool. But let's take a look. Here is my before, and here is my after. But take your time and just make it look just the way you want it to look. Now, you could come here if you want to. And again, we can click this double arrow magenta and see the area that we're affecting. But we can also do this. I can take this slider. You see this pink area here? This is the area I'm affecting, this light area here. If I take the slider and drag it into the right, see if you watch the clouds here. See if you can see them. See the adjustment changing there? So you can adjust this and, you know, tweak that a little bit. So you can tweak that adjustment and tighten it up or whatever you want, which is pretty cool. Now here's the before and here's the after. See that? Now I'm targeting less of those areas. All thanks to Blend Diff. And let's not forget to thank the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. Now you can see I have a selection here. I don't want this anymore. So click this button and you've deselected. Okay, what is next? You know, this beautiful pastoral scene. I'd like to lighten up some of the lighter areas in here. You know, more of a dodging effect in some of these really light areas. They're not extremely light, but we can add a little bit more pizzazz to this. This is more of a creative approach right now. Going to get the dodge tool again, so we're going to click this button right here. And we have a 50% gray layer and overlay. Again, you can use the transparent side if you would like. It really doesn't matter. I'm still at 10% opacity. I'm set up with a white brush, but you know what? I'm going to use Blend Diff again. But this time what I want to do is click on this button right here. And what this button does, it lets me pick a zone. So let me click on it. And I'm going to pick a zone, and that zone will be, like, see this light area right here? I'm going to click right here and click OK. Now we can see what that zone looks like by clicking this button right here. And there it is. But I want to tighten it up. So I'm going to take this bottom slider on the shadow area. And this is my range right in here. You see that right in there? I'm going to drag this to the right and watch how this tightens up. Isn't that cool? So all these magenta areas, these are areas that I can lighten. Now, I don't want to do the sky, so I'll probably do something. What do you think that is? I didn't show this in the notes, but you know what? If I paint up here near the sky, I may overshoot here. I was careful, and if you're careful, you don't need to protect yourself, but just in case you're not real good at something like this, like painting up near the sky, and you're not real careful, you can put a mask on there to protect yourself, so it's really nice. Right now I have this overlay, so click this button again, and the overlay goes away. Now we can go to the mask calculator, and I'm working on the foreground, so I'll click on foreground, and I'll click to load that as a selection. That'll keep me from going up into the sky. Again, I don't show this in the notes. You can use this if you want to, in case you're a little sloppy around the edges, so be careful. But with this mask, you don't have to worry. And you can see by the selection indicator that I do have a selection. Now notice my paint swatch. It was white before, but when I used Edit Blend Diff and the picker tool, it changed it to the color I selected right over in this area here. So I got to change this back to a white brush. So click on the white brush. Don't be fooled by that. You got to click that white brush again. If you use this picker tool, it will change this color. So go back to white. And now I'm going to go back to 10% opacity. I'm typing my 1 key. And if I paint out in the clouds here, see, nothing will happen out here. But I could come down in here and start painting over these light areas. Isn't that cool? And remember, Blend Diff is protecting me. And again, you can see the areas you can work on by clicking this button to see the overlay. So all these light areas I can work on, like up in here and so on. The cow, if I want to lighten him up a little bit. So click this button again. And now I can just paint over these areas like this. And you could be really loose here. And remember, we can always come back and readjust this up here if we want to. So just look for light areas that you want to lighten up, like in here, okay, down in here. And I can even come like this and zing a little bit of light. And you could be creative here. You might say, you know, I want that to be a little bit lighter right in there. Builds up a little bit of dimension in here. And remember, you always have your gray brush you can use to blend if you overdo anything. So I'm just looking for little light areas that I may want to lighten up, just to add a little bit of life here. And again, this is more of an artistic approach. You know, I could go under the cow here and paint in here. I could even paint on the cow if I want to. Okay, back in here. See that? Just a little bit. But, you know, you do have to take an artistic license here because you may not want to get everything. Then I could come up in here and zing a little bit of light here. And I get excited when I do this. Okay, I'm keeping this in real time because let's keep it real here, just so you can get an idea what I'm doing. Maybe some light across here. So let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. Isn't that cool? I may want to throw some light up in here. Let me see if I can. And you can tell by clicking this button, there's a little bit up in there that I can do. Not a whole lot, so let's click this again. But let's just, for the heck of it, go over some of this up in here. Okay, now remember, we can tighten this up if we want to by taking this slider or the top slider, whichever. Like I can broaden that out if I move it to the left. You see how it broadens out, or I can tighten it up. This really, really excites me that we can do this. And this slider, I don't think I have to worry about it because it's already given me the light areas. But let's take a look. Here's my before and here's my after. But take your time. And again, I may be a little too light up here, so let me grab my gray brush and just kind of blend over that a little bit. How about that? Something like that. So again, here's the before and here's the after. And I like it, you know. But take your time. I'm making a video. I got to think quickly, and sometimes I may go back and say, I overdid that. But if I did overdo something, please forgive me. Boy, I tell you, I envy this cow. He has such a beautiful view here. I hope he enjoys his view. What's next? You see this mountain back here? I'd like to just darken some of the shadow areas up in here just a little bit. So to do that, it's going to be a burn tool. And I'm going to use this technique with Blend Diff because I'm really enjoying this Blend Diff for dodging and burning. Hey, let me know in the comments section below if you've tried some of this. And if you like it, let me know. I think this is a really effective way of doing things. So let's grab a burn tool. Again, I'm going to use the left side. You can use the right side. It's up to you. But I want to select this mountain back here. To do that, I'm going to grab the object selection tool and just go like this and see if it selects it. And yes, it does a great job selecting that. And now what I can do is add this to the layer. Now I don't need to use the mask calculator here. I could, but if you click this button right here, you will select just that area right there. That's pretty neat. My blend diff is still opened, so I'm going to click the picker and I'm going to select a tone back here, like right here, and click OK. And if we click the double arrow magenta button here, we can see there is the tones that I am selecting. This time I'll take this top slider and drag it to the left a little bit, just to tighten that up, just to those really darker tones, maybe right about there. Now I need to shut the overlay off, so click this double arrow button. And I'm painting at 10% opacity. Make sure you have a black brush. If you don't, just click the black brush button right here. And now we can simply just paint over these areas like this. Every time you lift your brush, you'll darken a little bit more, and we can come in here a little bit, and it's just going to target the dark tones. The blend diff is doing that for us. And remember, the layer mask is protecting me. And if we overdo it, we can just pull back on this opacity. But let's take a look. Here is the before, and here's the after. And that looks good. And I think I'm a little too strong, so I'm going to take the opacity and pull it back just a little bit, maybe to somewhere right around there. Here's the before, and here is the after. And I think that really helps. I'm going to X out a blend diff for now. I'm going to darken some of the darker tones in the foreground area just to build up a little more contrast. Also brings out some of the textures and so on. So another burn tool, I'm using the left side, so I'll click on that. Now I want to just work in the foreground, so I'm going to use a mask calculator. So I'll click on my mask calculator button, and I want to work in the foreground, so click on foreground, and we will apply the foreground to a mask. And now we're only targeting the foreground. I'll click this button to go into Edit Blend If. I'm going to use the picker tool, click on the picker tool, and I'm going to sample a darker tone down here in the foreground, like maybe right about here, and click OK. We can click on this button so we can see where we're targeting. And then I can move this top slider into the left just to tighten up the area. See, like that? That's pretty good, somewhere right around there. By the way, you can change the color of this if you don't like magenta by holding your Command or Control key down and clicking here. And you can change this to any color that you want. Or if you don't like that strong of a magenta, you can take the saturation back by clicking around here. Just wanted to point that out. Okay, now I'm going to click this button to shut my overlay off. And now I can start painting. I have my black brush. And I'm just looking for dark areas. And I'm still at 10% opacity, by the way. And we can just start to paint away here. But remember, the blend diff is protecting me here. Now, every time I lift my brush and paint again, I'll apply more of that darkening effect. I'm going to go on the shadow of the cow here. And, you know, some of these areas up on the hill, maybe on these trees over here, up in here a little bit, over in here, back in these areas, like so. Certain areas back in here. Let's take a look. I'm not going to go too crazy here. Here is the before and here's the after. Okay, so maybe like right over in here a little bit, maybe right there. Maybe right in here. Okay. Now remember, we can also adjust this. So if I take this top slider and I drag it more to the right, you see how it'll grab more of those areas? And that'll broaden it out. Or I can take this and drag this in and tighten it up. You see I'm losing some of those areas. So you can just tweak this. And you know what? I think I like that. Let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. But isn't that nice? It just targets all those areas, building a little bit of texture, depth, and dimension. And don't forget your friend, the opacity slider. You can always pull this back if you feel your effect is too strong. And I might just pull mine back a little bit to somewhere right around there. Again, here's the before and the after. We're almost done. I want to darken off the top of the image and the bottom to close it off. And to do that, I'm going to X out of the blend diff and I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer, get a black mask to hide what I'm going to do by clicking this button right here. I'm going to go into the multiply blend mode to darken. We don't see it because of the black mask. Now I'll grab a gradient tool. It's right here, so click on that. Make sure you have it set for gradient and not classic gradient. Click this drop down and open up this basics folder and click on the third block right here for black to white or white to black. And then we're going to draw a gradient. So I'm going to hover right out here. And I'm going to click and drag down, and we can see it in real time, that gradient, as I come down here. And I'm going to keep pulling it down. Now, if you hold your shift key down, you can constrain that to go straight. And I'm going to come right down to about here, release the left click of my mouse, and then we can use this diamond slider or this diamond and slide this up and down and get that gradient looking just the way we like it. And I think maybe right about here looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go to blend if. If you don't want to see this line, we can click on the curves icon. And now let's go to edit blend if. So click this button right here. And what I want to do is I don't want to apply that to lights 1. So if you click this button, it means no lights 1. Now watch up here, the lights will get a little bit lighter up in there, so I won't darken them too much. So check it out. Here is the before. And here is after. But if I uncheck this right here where it says gray, we can see what it looks like without the no lights 1. It looks like that. And now we can see a little bit more of those lights, which looks a little more natural. And now I want to close off the bottom. Let me X out of the blend if and click a curves adjustment layer, another black mask, another multiply blend mode. I still have the gradient tool. I'm still set up properly here. So now I'm going to hover out here, and I'm going to click and drag up a gradient to, I'm going to hold my shift key down to make sure I keep that straight to maybe right about there. And then again, I can take this diamond and I can drag it up or down. I don't want it to go too far up into there. It won't look right. Maybe somewhere right about there looks good. And now let's go back to edit blend if, but let's not see this line by clicking on the curves icon. Let's go to edit blend if, click this button, and I want to keep it off of darks 1. So click this button for no darks 1, and it takes it off of darks 1. And I think that's too much, so I'm going to take the opacity, drag it off, and then just start to drag it up slowly. And I think somewhere right about here looks pretty good. Here's the before, and here's the after. Now, if I shut both of these layers off, you can see what it looks like without closing the top or bottom off, but you can see how that contains you into the frame. I'm not going to use a vignette, but I'm just closing the top and bottom off, which is something a lot of landscape photographers like to do. Let me X out of blend if. Now I'm going to get a TK action, so click on your TK button and color luminosity. This is always a good one to try. And what I want to do is just work on 3 of the different colors, and that's reds. So what I want to do is, I think I want to lighten my reds up, especially on that cow. See that cow? I just want to lighten him up a little bit, somewhere around there. Then I want to work on greens. If I take my greens back, see, I can build a little bit more contrast here. And I think somewhere right about there looks good. And now I'm going to darken my blues up a little bit, start to drag it to the left. And I'm going to take it over here to like -35. So here's the before and here's the after. So that's a pretty nice adjustment. I want to do one final balance and contrast adjustment. Now I do have a mids 3 down here, but I've made a lot of editing here, so I need a new midtones 3. So I'll click on the luminosity mask button, click on midtones 3 to protect shadows and highlights from clipping. I'll put it to a color grading tool and just make a final tweak or 2 in shadows, midtones, and highlights. So I'll start with shadows. I'm just going to pull my shadows back a little bit to say right about here. I'm going to go to midtones and maybe just open up the midtones a little bit to right here. And then I'm going to go to highlights, and I just want to pull back on the highlights just a little bit to somewhere right about here, just to tame them down a little bit. Now here is the before and here is the after. And I really like that. And one final adjustment. I'll X out of the color grading tool so I can see the multi-mask panel. I'm going to work with colors, so I'm going to click on the saturation vibrance mask button. I need to bring up some weaker colors, and that's vibrance, so I'm going to click on vibrance 1. That's really broad. Here's vibrance 2. Here is vibrance 3, and I think that's going to be good. I'll put this to a hue saturation adjustment layer. I'll start out with the reds because of the cow. I got to give him some love. And I'm just going to pull this to the right. You see that, how it's only affecting that cow? So I'm going to take this over to like a plus 36 right there. Now you think there'd be a lot of green in here, but it's mainly yellow. So let's click on yellows. And let's give the yellows a little more saturation. See, it looks like the greens are getting saturated, but it's really the yellows. But right there, that looks good. Then I'm going to go to blues, give the blues a little bit more saturation. See up in the sky. I'm going to go to like right here. And then let's go to master. So let's click on master and let's bring up the master a little bit. Now, you do this for what you like. I'm just doing it for what I think looks good. And I think like right about here. So check it out. Here is the before and here's the after. So it's minimal. But again, you adjust it for your eyes, for your vision, but this is my vision on this image. So there you go. Now we could take a look at the overall before and after. So we started out here and we end up here. And I hope our cow is happy out here in this beautiful field. I will close with one final thing. I'm going to click on this button right here, which gives us a blank pixel layer. I'm going to grab this remove tool because I'm sure a lot of you are saying, hey, Dave, look at this tag in this cow's ear. So I'm going to use a remove tool and just paint over this. And just like that, it's gone. There's a little line right here. If you wanted to get rid of some of these other cows back here, if you didn't think they were adding to the scene, you could paint over those and get rid of those. Even these little guys here, I don't know if they're really helping the scene that much. So I'm just going to paint over these and let those go away. And even this cow right here behind our beautiful brown cow, let's get rid of him. And this cow could stay, but I'm sorry. You're a nice cow, but I don't like you in this scene as much. So I'm going to get rid of you, and I'm taking my artistic license and saying you're gone. And this little thing here, I don't like. And anything you don't want, you can just paint over and just get rid of some little things that you don't like. And I think I'm happy. And that is it. By the way, there was a little jet trail in the sky. I got rid of that with the remove tool as well. Well, there it is, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this full edit today. If you did, please give it a like, share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe, click that bell notification icon, and click the all so you'll get all notifications. And then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get a notification about it. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I will see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing!